We have some big breaking news from the New York Rangers organization. Young player Vitali Kravtsov has apparently requested a trade and refused assignment to the AHL. Where might he be heading? We're also taking a look at some other trade rumors talking about the Chicago Blackhawks, Arizona Coyotes, and Anaheim Ducks. And we have several other news and signings to talk about as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some pretty important breaking news to talk about here today regarding the Rangers and some other teams. But first, I do have some other quick news notes here to get to before we jump into that. First up, I want to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have named themselves a new captain, and that's going to be longtime forward and center iceman Boone Jenner has been announced as the team's next captain. Of course, I talked about all the captain vacancies not that long ago, predicting who I thought might get it. I thought they might go with Zach Werenski, who's going to be an alternate just because he signed that long-term contract extension and seemed to be the main player they're going to continue building around for the foreseeable future. But Jenner certainly, as somebody I mentioned, as probably the only other option I thought on the team. Obviously, he's a player that has a lot of character, works hard, leads by example, and those are all good captain characteristics. I believe Bjorkstrand's also going to be an alternate there as well. So the Jackets have their new leadership group in place for opening day of the NHL season. We also got word that the Ottawa Senators, like the Rangers, are not going to be naming a captain. They're holding off. And to me, this is not a surprise, and I think it's largely connected to the fact that Brady Tkachuk is not signed. That just gives us that much more info to suggest that they want him to be the captain, but only when he signs, and preferably signs a longer-term contract extension. So they're going to be naming their leadership group ahead of their first game, which I suspect is going to include Thomas Chabot, probably Connor Brown, Nick Paul, something to that effect. And they're probably going to go with 3, maybe 4 alternate captains for the time being. I would imagine when Brady eventually does sign, they'll either give him the captaincy or at the very least give him an A. I'm not sure how they're going to work that out, but that's just more telling to me that they're not doing it is because they see him as the captain and they want to get the contract sorted out beforehand. As far as contract goes, we really don't have any additional updates right now. It's still the same old. I mean, everything's kind of carrying on here. It seems like the Sens want long-term. He wants bridge, and they're trying to bridge the difference, which I'm not sure how close they are because everybody's staying quiet at this point. So we'll wait for future updates on that situation. The Penguins made the Brian Boyle contract official today, announcing he signed a 1-year contract for $750,000. We did touch on that a bit yesterday, so quite a story for him to make his return to the NHL after being out all last year without a contract. Played for Team USA at the World Championships, and now goes on a PTO and earns himself a contract. Obviously, injuries there certainly helped his cause, but still, he's a guy who's extremely dedicated to his craft, gone through a lot personally off the ice. His whole family has really, and it's nice to see him get another crack here at that. Now, the Ottawa Senators also did announce today, besides the leadership group, that they've extended Parker Kelly, who's one of their younger players. He gets a 2-year contract extension, which is the same as what he's making now, $762,000. They extend him out 2 years, but year 2 is a one-way deal. He does have the opportunity to be on the roster right now, mainly due to injury, so he's going to be able to play opening night. Of course, they're without Colin White, who's going to be out 4 to 6 months. They're without Austin Watson, who's going to be out for about a month, I think, with an ankle injury. And of course, Brady is not there because he's not signed, so that creates some gaps and openings. So a guy like Parker Kelly, who's been actually a 2-time winner of the hardest working player in rookie camp, somebody they've been in the organization for a few years, well respected. Nice to see him get his opportunity, and I don't think it'll be too long before he's a regular NHL everyday player. Probably as early as next year, maybe even this year, depending on how things go and injuries, whatnot in Ottawa. As far as some injury updates, we got confirmation that Nicholas Backstrom in Washington is going on long-term injury reserve. So to go on an LTIR, they have to miss at least 24 days or 10 games played. So that's going to be a big loss for the Capitals to start the year, basically the first month without Backstrom. That's going to hurt, the whole center depth. Hopefully Kuznetsov Kravtsov can bounce back, if he's not playing up to his old standards, that's going to be an issue, and the Capitals might struggle out of the gate here. We'll have to keep our eye on that situation. And Jim Benning and the Vancouver Canucks announced that Brandon Sutter is going to be out. They don't really know how long, but he's on LTIR as well, so a minimum of a month. But he is somebody who, when the Canucks had their COVID outbreak, did unfortunately contract COVID and is what they call like a long COVID, like a long hauler. He's still experiencing the fatigue and all the things that come with it. I mean, obviously he does not have the actual symptoms that would be something he could pass on to anybody else, but like same kind of thing we saw basically Jonathan Toews battle last year, which is what they kind of came to the conclusion on his situation, is that he just, your body took a really long time to completely get rid of everything to the point that you felt normal again. So that's really unfortunate, but we've seen it not just professional athletes, we've seen it across a variety of people. So even these guys that are considered young, extremely healthy, extremely fit, beings here are struggling from this. So it goes to show you how somebody who's not might deal with it. And Vancouver also announced Brock Besser is on IR, retroactive back to the end of September. So he is going to be out for at least the first game or two of the season. So a couple of losses there for Vancouver on their opening night lineup. We also got word that, I guess we'll call him former NHLer now, but longtime KHL player, Nikita Gusev, who's had multiple attempts at NHL and did not work out. Most recently was in camp with the Leafs on a PTO, and they did not sign him. So he actually has now signed a one-year deal to go back to Russia, play in the KHL for SKA St. Petersburg. So I really have my doubts that Gusev will ever make an NHL return. I mean, we've seen him come over, and he's been with, I believe that's three to four teams now that he's had a chance to play with. I mean, so it didn't work, and I doubt it's going to moving forward in that front. Now, before we jump into the rest of the video, I do have to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. And guess what? Hockey fans are buzzing because hockey is back. Want to know what else is buzzing? The Lawnmower 4.0 from our friends at Manscaped, who are the global leaders in male grooming, trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. I highly recommend the Performance Package 4.0, which includes their new state-of-the-art Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some other great features. The lawnmower itself has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction switch that can engage as a travel lock, gives you the ability to turn on an LED spotlight as well for a more precise shave. Also, as I mentioned on numerous occasions before, Manscaped is about much more than just a trimmer. They have everything, all aspects covered in male grooming, including some great formulations like their brand new ultra premium body wash to keep you smelling great all day long. It's certainly a big hit here. I absolutely love it. They also have other exfoliators and gels to keep all aspects of your grooming needs covered. I highly recommend you check out manscaped.com. Use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code TSH. So thanks very much for watching our promotional content. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you again for all the support we've received lately through our sponsors, merchandise sales, and everything else. So super thanks. Everything you've been very, very generous to the community here. So I thank you again. Very much appreciate it. Now, into the big news of the day. We got a bit of a bomb here from Elliot Friedman out of the Rangers organization just not long ago, indicating that youngster Vitali Kravtsov, who was a 2018 first-round pick, taken number 9 overall, has been given permission and his agent to talk to other teams about facilitating a trade. Now, unfortunately for Kravtsov, he did not make the opening night roster here for the New York Rangers. He's refused assignment to go down to the American Hockey League. Word is the Rangers are most likely going to be suspending him for refusing the assignment. And they've talked to his agent, which was changed not long ago. He switched over to Dan Milstein, who does represent a lot of Russian hockey players with Gold Star. So he is now looking after Kravtsov's interest. I know I've seen reports from a few journalists that have reached out to Milstein looking for comment on this situation, and they wouldn't provide one. He just said at this point they're gonna stay quiet for the time being until they can figure out what's best here. So we're not going to get anything further from them. But we know that some of these Russian players do come over to North America with the expectation of playing in the NHL, because obviously one thing, there's a major difference between NHL and AHL salaries, especially in the early days when you're on your ELC, right? So if they have a much more opportunity to make a ton more money if they were to stay over and play in Russia. So that's why they want the assurance of getting the NHL time, the NHL money. So like we've seen this case before with Kravtsov and other young Russian players as well, that if they don't make the team, they want to be able to go back and play in Russia. So like that's why a lot of them work into that European loan clause into their contract, that they don't necessarily have to play in the AHL, that they can go back over there. They can make way more money. Financially makes a lot more sense. But obviously at this point, it looks as though the Rangers decided that some other young players as well, like a Julian Gauthier, for example, as well as like a Dryden Hunt or Kevin Rooney, that they all deserve spots over Kravtsov. When Gerard Gallant was asked about this, the new head coach of the Rangers, that's what he kind of focused on, was more so that it wasn't so much about Kravtsov, that these other players beat him out for spots. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a high prospect that has a lot of potential, and he's still obviously not showing that full potential to the Rangers to give them the confidence to put him in their everyday lineup. So clearly that's an issue. Now at the same time, I understand that the Rangers can't necessarily make these decisions based on threats to want to be moved or to leave. They got to go with the team they feel gives them the best chance to win hockey games game in and day out. But you do have to wonder about asset management, and that's certainly going to be becoming an issue here when your number 9 overall pick just from a few years ago wants out. I mean, we saw a situation with Elias Anderson a couple years ago as well, a similar type of situation. Not exactly, but still, like, when you're losing young assets like that, it's just that it's not a good look. I mean, this team has come through the rebuild. They have a really, stronger team than they did a few years ago. Things are moving quite well in the right direction here, and to lose Kravtsov would be a major blow. I mean, the Rangers, unfortunately, also lose a lot of leverage in trade talks when it's publicly known that he wants out of there. I mean, really, it's unfortunate that it's come to this, but this is another young asset that's, just not working out for them here. Now, I guarantee there will be plenty of interest around the NHL. One thing as well, I know when we talked a lot about the Rangers being linked to Jack Eichel, I've talked to myself a lot about the fact that I had to believe that Vitali Kravtsov would be one of the top young players included in this deal. And I know that a lot of people, Ranger fans, did not want to buy that, and Kravtsov's not going anywhere. But you listen to anybody that's been talking about the Eichel situation since really almost a year now, that this has been, or it feels like it's probably more like 8-9 months. But as far as what kind of package the Rangers would put together, pretty much everybody would had Kravtsov included, and they knew that, for one, he's a bubble player to make their roster this year, and that this type of thing very well could happen. This is not a huge shock. So obviously, like I said, as far as Eichel goes at this point, it's hard to say if the Rangers are still in the mix. Many feel that the Zibanejad contract extension takes him out of that. I'm not 100% sold on that, but I think it has a major impact, and I don't suspect the Rangers to really be pushing for an Eichel trade at this point anymore. At least it doesn't look that way. So, as I mentioned myself many times, if the Zibanejad contract extension comes through, that's going to change things. Until they had him extended, I had to believe, based on everything we were hearing, that the Rangers were a player for Eichel. That's obviously changed now. But at the same time, like Kravtsov on his own, regardless of Eichel, will generate a lot of interest around the NHL. I have to think like a team like Columbus comes to mind, a Detroit, an Ottawa, like teams that need NHL talent that are, have room on their rosters to get him playing time immediately. So I have no doubt there'll be no shortage of interest, just a matter of where he ends up going. But it's an unfortunate situation. It's also been reported by Friedman and others that the Rangers are looking to trade defenseman Libor Hayek as well, another young player that just can't find a spot in that roster. They have a plethora of defensemen. Obviously, he's not going to make the lineup. He's been beaten out here by Nils Lundqvist, who's been, another first rounder back from a few years ago, who's really impressed the coaching staff and taken on a regular top 6 role here heading into the opening night of the season. So that's huge for his development. But at the same time, it sets guys like Hayek back and drops them down. Then they have other guys coming like Robertson and Schneider, etc. And it's just a situation where they, he almost needs a fresh start, a chance to play somewhere else as well. So Libor Hayek, another guy, I'm not sure if there could be a package deal or whatnot to be had, but a couple of Ranger young players looking to move on. Now, Elliot Friedman released 2 podcasts here since yesterday, one covering the East, one covering the Western Conference, doing a preview of all the teams, talking about players as well throughout the 2 podcasts that could be on the move here. One, he references again Dylan Strome of Chicago is another name to keep your eye on as this NHL season approaches. Some of these won't necessarily be moved immediately, but I think as the season starts and teams have a better idea what they have, we're bound to see a little bit of activity early. Some of the rest of it might wait until closer to the deadline. But again, with Dylan Strome, Jonathan Taves, and all the other players they have playing down the middle, Kirby Dach, it's believed that Strome has basically become an expendable piece there, and that he's likely not going to finish the year in Chicago. Hard to say where he goes. It hasn't been linked to any specific teams, but there's always teams looking for help down the middle, and you have to think there will be a decent amount for the small contract. It's not a huge risk to take him on. If he can play like he did in junior and when he first arrived to Chicago, he could be a good steal for somebody else, and hopefully he'll be motivated as well after running into a trade. Of course, he also references the fact, again, that Phil Kessel 100% will be dealt at some point this year. Comes with a higher cap hit, but a really low salary. He's only making $1 million. The Coyotes 100% want to move him. He himself has told the Coyotes he 100% wants to move as well. So Kessel is definitely a name to look out for here, whether it be short-term or long-term before the deadline. He is not going to finish the season in Arizona. But the bigger names that he mentioned that really intrigued me, which we've talked a little bit about off and on, was the Anaheim Ducks players. That he said basically for the Ducks this season, the main thing to focus on is making progress with the young players. So the young players making progress, like your Maxime Comtois, your Jamie Drysdale, your Trevor Zegras, your Max Jones, your Sam Steeles, Troy Terry's, all those guys, your young core that you're trying to build around. As long as they progressed, you've had a successful season. The Ducks likely don't make the playoffs. They likely don't push too hard to fight for, improving the team that way. They're going through, making the team younger, faster, more skilled. So guys that are on expiring contracts right now, like Rickard Rakell, Josh Manson, and Hampus Lindholm, right now there's no word about any of them really being extended. So it looks like they all could possibly become trade bait before the deadline, and I think they'll all have a certain amount of value. And like Rakell obviously hasn't been quite up to his old scoring self, but if he's a good a good potential goal scoring top 6 or top 9 player for a lot of teams out there who can be tough to play against. He can play a decent two-way game. You've got Manson and Lindholm, some decent defensemen out there who can log some good minutes as well. I know when I think of Lindholm, I think of the Islanders. I don't know if they can make that work or not. I know cap-wise they'd have to move something out to create the space, which would be the challenge, but I think he'd be a terrific fit there. Josh Manson as a right-hander would be a terrific fit on a lot of teams as well, and I think these players are all going to be guys we watch closely and have lots of talk on as the season goes on, as these teams clearly want to make some room and get these veteran players moved along to create more room for the younger players to take bigger roles within their team. So let me know your thoughts on today's news, especially the big blockbuster news especially the big news that we weren't expecting on Vitali Kravtsov. Let me know your comments down below. Where do you think he ends up? What kind of return can the Rangers get? Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.